Hi everyone. This is the review that I promised you, and we'll post this obviously on our Blackboard site. But what I want to do is I just want to kind of make sure that we're organized in terms of the topics that we have covered so far in the semester. And then if you have any questions for follow-up for me, please do that. As you know, we have been attending the technology conference on Monday and Tuesday, and actually on Monday learned a lot. Got a lot of new stuff, and but I also feel good about where we're going in this class because I think a lot of the sessions and topics complemented what we have been doing with you in this class. So I feel like as new teachers going out, you really are prepared. And even some of the ISU students who were down there said that exact same thing. They said, you know, really, we're learning about all this in our classes. So that's a good thing. That's where we want to be. So with that, as I've reviewed for the midterm myself, I do think that we've had a lot of topics, and I just want to make sure that we're clear. Okay, so here are the areas that I think that we will deal with. I'm going to move this over for just a minute. I have to get on my, okay, I'll move it back over. Just one comment about the review of topics. Remember lecture lab connections, okay? When I talk about things in lecture, you usually do them in lab or you do some things related to them. So as you think about laying the course out, I'd really like you to think about, okay, what did we cover in lecture? And then how did that play out in lab? And so even all the different kinds of things that you've done information literacy, you've done a couple online labs. The online lab this week will not be included in the exam, but that's dealing more with professional development, but you are learning about different things. But since that is not due until Friday, those topics will not be covered in the exam. Think about the dot day theme. You've used digital pictures. Think about the math kinds of things that you've done. Um, you know, you've just done a lot of different things. So kind of put those connections together. And then just like that, the journal articles and the readings, it's fair game. It's not like I'm going to pull specifics out of those articles, you know, like just specific details, but conceptually, I want you to understand and let those articles kind of give you the foundational help that you might need to answer the questions that we pose, okay? So here are kind of the basic 7 big topics I think that we've covered so far this semester. We talked about information literacy, website evaluation, TPAC, digital images and how those are used, fair use and copyright. Then we kind of got into the idea of grounded technology integration, and that encompasses lesson planning, and then that led us to kind of the math technology integration piece. Okay, so you can kind of see the flow. We kind of started with those basic conceptual pieces of information literacy, copyright, website evaluation, even TPAC, and now we're kind of getting into, okay, now how do we use technology to plan instruction, especially in the content areas? Now again, we're going to get to the different content areas, but so far we've only had time to deal with math, okay? So that's kind of where we are. First off, information literacy. These are the questions that I would focus on for information literacy. What is it? How can you and your students search on the web? And I gave you a specific search strategy to help with students. That being like defining the problem, looking for keywords, kind of a Boolean kinds of things, kind of check after you're done with the search. So I shared you with some specific searches or search strategies. Then also, what specific are some specific search engines for students? We always say Google it, but is Google it always the best for especially younger children? So I wanted you to be aware there are other options in terms of search engines, so make sure you look those up as well. Next was evaluating web pages. We talked about criteria that you use to evaluate web pages: accuracy, authority, objectivity, currency, and coverage. Okay, so kind of know what those are. You know why are those important in scanning web pages and evaluating web pages. And then we also talked about a 5W way, WH way, to help students, the who, what, where, when, why kind of approach to use with students. So just again, evaluating web pages and why that's important. Then we got into TPAC. And TPAC, again, you guys, conceptual framework of how we as teachers can think about integrating technology into classrooms with the basis of content knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, and then technology knowledge. And where those come together, that intersection of that diagram, that's TPAC. What we want to do, we want to get you started in 201 thinking about TPAC, and hopefully by the time you graduate from Iowa State, you will have a very solid handle on TPAC and how that is used. And think about the framework as we've used it in 201 is how do we lay this on top of instructional planning? What do we ask ourselves when we think about planning for instruction related to TPAC? We did talk about some digital images, and we did this in the idea of dot day. If you remember, you had a lab, but I did talk about this on a lecture. I think it was a flipped lecture. But how can you and your students take better pictures? Okay, and also what is the organizing framework for those using those images? Just to give you a couple of them, creating, analyzing, acquiring, communicating, they're kind of on this diagram. But what does it mean when you go through those, and how does that impact how you think about using digital images in the classroom? Because it's a very, very, very valuable tool. Of course, copyright and fair use. Okay, so copyright and fair use, we've spent a lot of time on that, but rightly so, very important, especially for teachers today to understand this. What are the 4 criteria of fair use? Again, memorize those, know those, okay? And then a little bit about how much of copyrighted material can you use when you're dealing with copyright, and especially technology. How much printed, how much video, how much music. Again, I like to think of it glass half full rather than half empty. We maybe wouldn't be able to use any of it, but because we have fair use and copyright, we can use some. Let's just know what percentage can we use. Then we got into this transition kind of to grounded technology integration. And you guys, again, go back, make sure you're reading these articles, the Harrison Hofer article. Then this kind of led into kind of the math aspect of it with math activity types. Those kinds of things, like what do we think of when we use technology in math? So basically, what are the 5 basic steps in planning a learning event according to Harrison Hofer? And then how does this relate back to TPAC when you think about that framework? It did lead us into learning objectives. What is a learning objective? And how do I write effective objectives when planning a lesson? So there again, we did that last week. Kind of one of the last things that we did together was learning how to write an objective. It is kind of like the Dr. Crawford way, although again, I think you're going to find out that that's how other instructors at Iowa State are using objectives as well. Learning objectives are very, very important because they help you plan that instruction. What are you going to teach? How are you going to teach it? And then how are you going to assess it when you're done? Okay, so that led into that grounded technology. The last thing that I just want to, because this is kind of the hands-on part of the class, you've spent a lot of time dealing with math and technology. So I want you to think about what have you learned about teaching math and about using technology then to assist you in the process of teaching math. Think back to what are the technologies that you used. You got into Scratch Junior, used Scratch. You even looked up some yourselves. We talked about different ones in lecture. Last time you did EduCreations. We talked about spreadsheets. There's calculators. There's just an abundance of ways to use technology in math. And so again, kind of for yourself, for the benefit of yourself, reflect back on that and like, how do you think differently now? Or maybe you don't, but how are you more in tune to what can you use with technology when you're dealing with math with students? We also did a lot of apps, or at least you were asked to review some of the apps, but you guys can find those yourself as well. Okay, so those are really the things that I would like you to focus on for the exam. We will be taking the exam on Thursday in lecture, so please arrive promptly. You will have the entire time to do the exam, and again, it will be short answer. uh, I still think it's not essay, it's more short answer. And again, the focus will be applying what you have learned. I'm not trying to trip you up, but learn this, what we've gone through today, in terms of, what does it look like? What things have you done? And start making those connections. Make those connections to how will this affect you as a future teacher. Okay, please bring extra sheets of paper. We'll give you the exam, but you'll write your answers on just notebook paper. Okay, so we'll see you. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll see you on Thursday. Good luck with your studying.